Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second GitBook webinar. Excited to have everyone here. We'll just give it another minute or two while a few more people join. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. I think it'd be pretty cool if everyone maybe let everyone else in the chat know where you're tuning in from. I'm calling from Amsterdam, but yeah, let us know in the chat where you're at in the world. That was super cool. We have people from all over. Really excited to talk to everyone today about GitBook. As you probably know, we've made a lot of changes over the last couple of weeks, and definitely want to dive into all the changes today. Talk a little bit more about what's coming next, and also leave some time at the end for some questions too. Oh, very cool. I'm also joined by two of my colleagues, John and Mallory. They're going to be hanging out in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in there. We'll make sure that we get to them at the end, and if not, we'll make sure that we can cover them afterwards. Okay. Yeah, again, introduce yourself in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go ahead and get started right away. All right, so again, for all the new joiners, welcome to our second webinar since we've redone GitBook. Again, excited to cover everything today. Today we're going to be covering GitBook for published docs. The main theme of today is the published documentation that you see and that you've probably made with our tool as well. Again, we've made a lot of changes. I'm going to cover as many of them as I can and talk a little bit more about why we've kind of done this and what's next and what we have in store. So if you haven't seen me before, my name's Addison. I work on our developer relations team here at GitBook. And basically my main role is to help you all become successful with our tool, whether that's something a little bit more technical, like discovering more workflows around Git Sync with GitHub and GitLab, using our integration platform, or just using the tool to help you get your job done. A quick agenda, so we all kind of know what we're going to be looking at today. I'm obviously going to talk about the published content updates, which has to do in relation to all the stuff that you have published through GitBook. We updated our OpenAPI block. I'm really excited about this one. I'll cover a little bit more about what's new there, but also talk about some of the new ways that you can use it. We've also introduced unified search recently. I know this has also been a pretty big feature request from everyone here. So wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about how that works and how you can set it up for your own spaces and publish content. Talk a little bit more about like performance upgrades. It kind of relates to, well, definitely relates to the things that we've been working on for the published content side of things. We'll talk about GitBook AI as well, all the different features and kind of just demo them and see how they work. We'll talk a little bit about visitor authentication as well. We have released some pretty easy ways that you can use visitor authentication for your published sites, and I'm really excited to demo it, set it up, and show you how you can use it in your own spaces. And like I said, we'll give a little sneak preview about what's next as well. Again, we're also going to leave some time at the end for some questions. I can't see the questions just yet, but my teammates Mallory and John are in the chat. They'll be marking them, so just pop them in at any point, and again, we'll try to cover them at the end. So you don't have to wait for a specific time. You can already start putting some questions in there if you have them. Cool. Let's dive in. This is going to be a demo more than a presentation, so I'm going to stop sharing this presentation. And we're going to dive in. So as I mentioned, the first thing that we're going to cover is the published content and kind of some of the updates that we've made. I'm going to use our own documentation as an example. And yeah, you can already see this, docs.gitbook.com. Again, chances are you also have seen this if you have published something in GitBook, but we've made a lot of changes to the general UI, the performance, and just kind of the overall functionality of this. We've moved some things around as well, so I do want to also cover about like where you're going to find some things, because if you haven't seen this yet, this might look a little different from what you had previously had published. One thing that I do want to point out at the end is the toggle and the dark mode is now listed at the bottom. I know that's kind of been a source of confusion, but if you are looking for that, your users will definitely see this at the bottom and you can change this around as needed. What we've also introduced though is a few more ways that you can customize a lot of the different spaces that you have published. And I want to dive into some of these options as well. What I'm gonna also do is use and create a new space inside of this demo account that I have, and we're gonna just do everything inside of here. So I'm gonna start by creating a new space. We can call this one just like demo. We'll call it webinar. Well, let's say book for published content. I'm also going to publish this right away, so so we can go ahead and see it live. I'm also going to share this link as well. So, and open this up. I'm going to move this, delete that one. We'll be working in this one. So if you want to follow along and see some of the updates in real time, you'll be able to head to this page and see them. Cool. So like I mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about the customization options and some new things that you can use yourself. One of the main things that we have added is actually a different way to update the background color of your sites that you have published. So if we head over to, one sec here. If you head down here to background, we have introduced something called match theme. And what this is going to do is it's going to, well, basically take a look at the different colors that you have published inside of your space. And it will basically offer a background that complements the rest of your theme. We've also introduced this to make it a little bit easier for your readers while they're scanning and reading your documentation, because we do know that having a very white color on the background can also be jarring on the eye sometimes, especially if you're reading a little bit longer. So we wanted to introduce this to make it a little bit easier to play around with that. But if you do also want a plain color, you can always switch it back here. We've also introduced different loading states as well. So maybe if you open up your own documentation, you'll see this. Again, as I mentioned, we've introduced a lot of performance updates. So hopefully your docs are loading a lot faster, and that's why I can't really demo this right now. But if it is loading, you'll see loading states for most of the UI that you have here to just give a little bit more indication that there's more content that's coming. And again, we've updated all of the different blocks that you have inside of here. That's the second point that I wanted to talk about as well with the published docs, is that your published docs right now might look a little bit different than what you have set up in the editor view. So let me actually head out of here. And well, to get started, let me go ahead and add some blocks onto this page so we have some content. So open up the menu. Let's do some things like, and we'll add some more things like hints. If you do want to change it, you can always just click on this to change the type of hint block it is as well. We'll do something like an expandable. Again, just using some demo stuff here. And let's do like a tab block as well. So after I merge this in, this is going to go live. But the main thing, again, that I wanted to mention is that the UI that you're seeing inside of the editor right now may look a little bit different than the view that you have inside of here, specifically talking about the blocks. Again, we've updated the UI for the published side of things, and we definitely want to unify the experience when it comes to the editor and the published section. So I just wanted to mention that so you don't get alarmed if you see the styling kind of looking here one way and then seeing it look a little bit different here. Again, our intention is to bring the styling that we have in this published side of things into the editor. So that's something that we're working on and is yet to come. But definitely check out the UI. Again, check out your own docs and play around and see kind of what some of these updates are. But all of these should definitely be a lot more accessible, a lot more performant, and in general, a little bit more modern when it comes to having something published on the web. In one of these blocks, though, we've made quite a few additions and updates, and that's also what I wanted to spend some time on. And we're going to talk about the OpenAPI blocks and API methods that you can use and document inside of GitBook. We know that a lot of you are using our tool GitBook for creating your own API documentation, and we want to make sure that this experience is performant, useful, but just overall a good experience for both you and the users who are reading your content. So I'm going to give a real life example, and I'm going to start to document some API methods that we have. Let's actually add a new page for this. Let's rename that, and we'll add a new page. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is previously we've had two different ways that you could document your APIs. We had the OpenAPI block, and we also just had an API method block. We've since removed the API method block in light of the OpenAPI one, and again, I'll dive into this in just a minute. But I do want to mention that if you don't have an OpenAPI specification and you are still interested in documenting your API, we still have a way that you can do this. If you open up the menu and you scroll all the way down, we actually have a new quick start section here, and this will allow you to insert an API reference. And as you see here, it gives you a pretty similar experience to having the API documented. It doesn't use the same block, but we've replaced it with things and other blocks that we still support that should hopefully do the job. So you can again write different responses, dive into the parameters a little bit more, and go from there. Let me rename. Actually, I'll keep that one, but I'm gonna upload a new one. And we'll call this one OpenAPI. I'm also going to merge these changes continuously as we go on, just again, in case you're interested in seeing how this is working as we go along. But with the OpenAPI block, what we still do allow is for you to upload a OpenAPI specification file or link to a URL and open up the different commands and methods that you have defined in the OpenAPI spec to then render inside of your published content. I'm actually going to use our own API for this. We do have this all documented in developers.gitbook.com, which is our official documentation for our integration platform and using different APIs and such. But I'm going to give you a demo on how this works. So we'll first open up the insert block menu, and we'll head to OpenAPI. I'm going to use a URL, and I'm going to use our API itself, which is basically just available at this endpoint here that we use. And we're going to go ahead and save this. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to parse through the different methods that we have inside of this API spec, and we can add a few in. So what I'm going to do is actually I'll do two of them here. I'll do our base point, and we'll do the other one. And again, I just wanted to mention this is the old UI for the API endpoint, and this is going to look different when it's published. But I think you're going to enjoy some of these changes as well. So let me merge these in, and then we'll give it a second to update in the published side of things. We'll take a look. We've also introduced more methods to cache the docs that you have, granted if they weren't updated. So that should also help with a lot of the speed and performance for when you're loading your docs, especially if you've opened them up before. Oh, and there we got to see a little bit of the loading state. So you'll see that obviously these blocks look quite different from, again, the UI that you have in the editor and the UI that you have in the published side of things. But I think they're a lot more descriptive and also a lot more useful for your users. You'll be able to see the responses that you get, example requests if they're defined. But my favorite part about this whole thing is we've now introduced a test it button. So we've partnered up with a awesome open source tool called Scalar. And this allows you to test the different API endpoints that you have defined through OpenAI. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this. We're also working on a ton of updates, continuing updates on this with Scalar as well. So you can expect, quite a lot of improvements to this whole experience and how this works in general. If you have any issues or questions, feel free to reach out to us and our team. We'd love to hear it. We want to know what's working and what's not, so we can obviously make this the best version that it can be. So the first thing that I want to do is just call this this API. You'll notice that when you click the test it button, it opens up the Scalar powered window, and we can start to add different variables in here. We're going to need to add a host for this particular instance, and we're going to do api.gitbook.com. I think this should work already if we send a request, and we get the response right inside of GitBook, which is super awesome because, again, previously before you might have had to use an external tool, something like Postman or a different tool to test out your APIs, but now you and your users can head right inside of here and see them working in action. I'm super excited about this. This has been a highly requested feature for a long time. And again, working with Scalar to continue to make this better is definitely on the roadmap. So if there's any features around this that you would like to see, let us know. You'll see the response, and this endpoint just gives us the version and build, and we can see that that's exactly what we'll get from here. We can also do a little bit more of a more complicated or more complex method, maybe something that uses that needs authorization and authentication. We'll do the same thing. I'm going to add a host, and we'll do, and we also this one uses authentication. So we're going to do a bearer token, and I've just got this here. And if we send this test request, you'll see that we also now get this. So again, this should work pretty good. Let us know what's not working. Use our own APIs as well. You can head to developer.gitbook.com, and you can also test out our APIs now, which is great. And any questions or concerns or anything, feedback, pop them in the chat. We'll make sure we get to those after. So that's a big update for our OpenAPI methods in the blocks. Again, this hopefully is going to be useful enough for you in terms of documenting the things that aren't specified on like an OpenAPI spec. But if you are using OpenAPI, definitely check this out. A little bit extra information on this that I wanted to mention as well, and this is super useful, but it also will give you more customization for the different OpenAPI specs that you use. Make sure you head to our documentation. If you head to OpenAPI methods, learn a little bit more about Scalar, the tool. But one thing that I wanted to mention is we also support options inside of the OpenAPI spec. So if you don't want your users to see a try it panel, if you want to also hide your code samples, you can set both of these properties inside of the you can set both of these inside of your specification, and GitBook will respect that. You can set them both at the root, so you can hide it for everything in your specification, but you can also do it specifically per operation. So just wanted to point that out because maybe you don't want your users to try out your APIs, or you don't want to show the code samples because they might not be useful in certain languages, etc. So make sure that you check this out and try it out, and let us know if there's any issues with that there. Okay, let's see what else we are going to dive into. The next thing we're going to talk about is another feature that we had also launched that's related to GitBook and its published content, and that is what we're calling unified search. Previously, within GitBook, you were only able to use the search functionality. Again, this is all focused on the published side of things. For the current space that you're in. So we could search all this content. We could also use GitBook AI to get some get some answers returned on this. But for a lot of people and a lot of teams, you might not have all of your information located just within one space. You might, for example, have different product docs that are related to each other. You might have different docs in different languages, or you might have similar products that you do need a more unified search experience. And we've introduced that functionality with this new ability with the published content. And I'll show you how we can set that up. It does have to do with the collections that you have. And what I'm going to start by doing is creating a new collection. We're going to call this published content. And where do I have this? I think it's down here. I'm going to move this to the top, make it easier for me to use it. And inside, I'm also going to move our first space. For now, what I'm also going to do is unpublish this one because we're going to republish it under the collection. I'll show you that in just a minute. What I also need is a second space so I can show you that you can search through both of them. We're going to add a new space inside of here. Call it product docs. Oops. GitBook AI is definitely a useful tool for me when I'm running these webinars, so we can write some pages pretty quick. So while that's running, I think we're good to go there. Let's go to publish content. And what I'm going to do is actually publish this entire collection. So we'll head to the share menu up top. We'll publish also to the web. And now when we head over here, it might take a second also. Let's try again. Oh, we actually, excuse me, have to also head here and forgot to publish these inside of our collection. So now if we go here, we can copy this link. Might just take a second. Let's just double check our settings are all correct. You can also try to just make sure. I'm going to see if this is maybe set up in a different collection. If this isn't working just yet, I can show something else. For published content. Let's see if we can go to one of these directly. So we are able to access this, but let me see if there's something else that I've also messed up here. Also, maybe just try this again. Yeah, I'm a little stumped at why that isn't working just yet. But what I will mention is that you will see with any spaces that are published within a collection as we have it here. Again, I have to check why this specific space isn't working necessarily, but when you search for something, so if we were to search for something that's inside of the product docs, like if we searched for Cloud Connect, On the normal page, you would see no results, but you would have a tab to say search entire collection, and that would then pop up more information. So just for an FYI for you and your users, if you're going through this and you want to check this out, put them inside of a collection. Again, you might have to update some of the settings for the space visibility, but you should be able to see it and use that feature. I'll double check afterwards what's going on with that, but at least you are now familiar a little bit more with the workflow. Let's see. The other things that I want to talk about is visitor authentication, because I know that this has also been a pretty big topic for teams and enterprises who are looking to have a little bit more granular control over the way that you protect and visit your docs and grant access to who has visibility to it. If you're not familiar with visitor authentication, let me just head over here and make sure we're on the right page. Visitor authentication is basically, again, keep in mind as well, this is only for pro and enterprise teams, but it allows you to put your docs behind a sign-in option. Previously, we supported custom solutions where you would have to create a custom backend or a custom server that would handle the people coming in and the authentication, which we still also do support. But we now have 3 different integrations that allow you to set this up without any code knowledge at all. So we have Auth0, Azure, and also Okta. I'm going to go ahead and demo an example of Auth0 to show you how this works. So let's head to our documentation and create a new space. Let's call this Auth0 VA sample. Oh, page 1 is fine, I guess, for now. Why not? We can also so we have a little bit of content of something that's happening soon. I think it's happening on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so we have some content, and we want to publish this, but maybe for some instance, we don't want everybody to be able to access this. We're going to publish this using visitor authentication and Auth0. We first want to head to integrations for the space specifically, and we want to install them. This is actually also a pretty great time for me to mention as well that we've been making some updates to our integrations panel. So the experience that you see is also a little bit different than from what it used to be. But I think it's a lot more unified. Let me take a step back and also show you that we now have the integrations page instead of a modal. So if you are interested in discovering integrations that are available for you and your organization, you can head to this integrations tab and you'll be able to basically install them to your integration. If you haven't used integrations before, let me give you a quick overview. You basically can find any of our verified integrations and you'll install it into your organization. Once it's installed in your organization, you can then add it to a space because maybe you don't want to have, for instance, the visitor authentication on every space, but you would install it to your organization and then you would install it into one of these here. What that also means is we have a new panel that allows you to discover and see which ones are all enabled and available. So we want to do this Auth0 one. And I want to enable it for, let's do this one that we just did. This will give us a little bit of information about the integration and how to configure it. And essentially what we're going to need to do is add a few parameters inside of here so we can set this up. If you haven't seen this before, we also do have a guide on this. So make sure you head over here and check this out. I've already skipped some of these steps as well, and I've created some of these apps. So I just want to use a few of these here. I'm going to need to add this URL at the bottom and save these changes. add some of these other parameters. And once we have that saved, we will then be able to head back to here. We'll want to share this, but we'll want to, instead of publishing this to the web, we'll want to share with an audience. We'll click publish with visitor authentication. And for the authentication backend, we're going to choose the VA auth, the one that we have installed. So just make sure that's saved. And now it will be available inside of here. So if I head here, if everything's working, let's see. I'll just make, oh, actually, need to make sure that each one of these is also a little bit different depending on, yeah, let me just make sure that the parameters, right? Make sure that you also have the callback URL specified the right way. We'll just give it also a minute for this to work. Okay, but we had here. I guess this stuff isn't wanting to work for me on the webinar today. I'll try this again in just a little bit as well to see if it was something, if it's just taking a little bit. But essentially, in going through this, you should be able to enforce a login for your users when you go through this. You'll have to configure a few things inside of the application that you're using, whether it's Auth0 or something else. But make sure you head to the guides that I had pointed out before, because they should have everything. Let me try one more time just in case. Again, it just took a minute. Yeah, I'll have to double check that. There is actually a chance that this might not work because I haven't upgraded this account to a pro, but I think that should be working with it set up now. Again, I'll check that in just a bit. Thank you again, everyone, so much, and hope to see you in our community and at the next webinar. Bye.